was looking for you.
Oh, well, I was right there. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Sam Baumgarten, and I am your lay worship leader for today's service. And I warmly welcome you to the First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church in Bridgewater. I've been a member here for 38 years. Go ahead, say that. It's a long time. And I had the privilege of serving on the search committee this past summer, which brought our wonderful Pastor Rosemary to us. And I'm soon to be helping Jan with a little bylaws revision. I don't currently serve on any other committees, but as you know, I'm very active in our local citizens group, Bridgewater Communities for Civil Rights, which includes many of our church members. One of the best things I like about First Parish is getting to do this. I like being part of a service occasionally and getting to be feeling part of the church through that kind of contribution. We have a few announcements before we start our service this morning. I have two myself. On Tuesday night, there is a forum at the Bridgewater Public Library, again sponsored by our Bridgewater Communities for Civil Rights. It's called Disability Awareness. And two of our members, Angela Shebley and Mark Henderson, will be part of the panel that will speak about disability awareness and issues related to that. It starts at 5 o'clock with some vendor tables, and then the forum starts at 6. So that's at the Bridgewater Public Library Tuesday night. And most of you know that I do a community dance group every other Friday night. We have a special dance coming up on November 16th, a Saturday night special we call it, at the Cedar Street Community Center right across the street. So kind of keep that in mind, and I've put a flyer out on the table about that. And I'm going to ask Heather to come up and talk about Friday night's event here at the church.
Good morning. Yes, we have our second annual Carve and Feast Halloween party this coming Friday. It's not Saturday, it's Friday. It starts at 6:30 p.m. and we ask that you bring your favorite potluck dish. There is going to be a stiff competition of who can carve the coolest, the winning pumpkin. So those that would like to participate receive a pretty large pumpkin, and then you create your most creative pumpkin face, or however you artistically feel. And then we do have a vote for who wins the best pumpkin carving, but it's a lovely evening of music and potluck, and it's Friday night at 6:30. And today at coffee hour, I am going to be coming around to see if you all will be coming, and also if you're going to be bringing a dish. But we welcome you openly. And it is a $20 entrance fee for the pumpkins and for the prizes, and you can send an email if that is cost prohibitive to firstparishbridgewater@gmail.com. Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can see me at coffee hour.
Anybody else have an announcement they wish to make? If not, then we will begin. I do. Come on.
I forgot. Next month, I'll be hosting 2 classes after the service on November 10th and November 24th for people who are newer to Unitarian Universalism. There'll be your UU Journey classes. You can come to one, you can come to both. I would love it if you came to both. If you're newer to our community or newer to Unitarian Universalism, I'll be facilitating these small group conversations about our faith and your place in it and your faith journey and our shared values, and we'll be exploring those things together. They'll be after the service at noon, so you'll get your coffee hour snacks, socialize, and then we'll meet in the church office, and it'll be an hour long. on those 2 Sundays. So come see me at coffee hour if you're interested in participating. Drop-ins are welcome, but I would love to know in advance if you'll be there. And it'll be a really wonderful time.
First Parish Bridgewater is a welcoming congregation. We proudly fly the rainbow flag to symbolize our welcome to people of all identities, ages, and backgrounds. If you are new to First Parish, we hope you enjoy your experience this morning. We encourage you to fill out the guest book on the back of the table at the rear of the sanctuary, making sure to include your email address to receive church updates. For newcomers who may be joining online, please see the sign-up link posted in the chat. We invite all who are here in person to join us after the service for a time of fellowship in the parish hall. This service is being hosted via Zoom, and it is recorded for Bridgewater Cable TV. The camera is turned off to protect your privacy during the sharing of joys and sorrows. In the event of an emergency or evacuation drill, please leave the building through the main sanctuary doors to the rear, or should you need a ramp, through the school street entrance to my left. You are welcome here. Thank you for joining us. Your presence makes a difference. We will now begin our time of worship with the prelude. We'll now have our chalice lighting, if we can find Hadley. If not, would you like to light the chalice? Please join me in the reciting of our chalice lighting words, which are now posted. We light our
chalice to mark this sacred hour as we gather in this beautiful historic sanctuary, both in body and in spirit. We gather to the many generations that have come here to explore the divine. Let us join our hearts and find the holy in our relationship to each other. It is time to share worship together.
Now please rise in body or spirit as you are able, and we will do our affirmation of our covenant and aspiration.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
seated, and Rosemary will give us our opening words.
These words will serve as our opening words and our benediction for today. And I invite you to notice if they hit you differently now and at the end of our service. Listen, the Spirit is calling. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It calls us in the silence and through the noise and busyness of our daily lives. It calls us in the brightness of the day and the darkness of the night, in times of hope and despair. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It doesn't matter what you call it, for it has no name and many different names. The Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of compassion, the Spirit of hope, the Spirit of justice. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It's calling to you and to me. It's calling us to greater wholeness, greater connection, greater service, greater love. It's calling us to heal the brokenness within ourselves, in others, and in the world. It's calling us to live more deeply. It's calling us to beauty. It's calling us to laugh and dance and sing. It's calling us to live through life's pain and sorrow. It's calling us to live courageously and kindly, to speak our truth in love, and to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice. It's calling us into community. It's calling into the greater life of all. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. That's by John Saxon. Let's rise as we're able for our opening hymn, number 360, Here We Have Gathered.
Now is the time in our service for the sharing of joys and sorrows, those matters of great personal significance that touch us, our families, and loved ones. If you have a joy or sorrow, please come to the front to light a candle. If you would like to speak, please keep your sharing brief so that this ritual can move smoothly. You may also choose to light your candle in silence. Online participants are invited to share by typing joys and sorrows into the chat, and a volunteer will read them aloud in the sanctuary. So if you'd like to come forward, this is the time to do it.
Each week we share joys and sorrows because a joy shared is brighter and a sorrow shared is a burden off our backs. This week, this month, the burdens continue, and yet the joys, they persist. For birthdays celebrated, for the shaky joy of a near miss, for the shocking miracle of a folding and unfolding just right. We give thanks. We gather together in love and celebration. And we also gather to help one another hold what is hard in our world. Those around the world who struggle with the loss of access to power, the onslaught of natural disasters and man-made disasters of corruption and violence. Those in Lebanon and Gaza and Israel this week, suffering greatly. Those in Cuba with the power gone. Those in Sudan in famine. And those in our own lives who are ill. How can we hold all this? It is not something we can do alone. It is not something I can do alone. So, Spirit of life, be with us now as we hold these hard things together. As we pray, meditate, contemplate healing, peace, wellness, enough to eat, power, an end to the violence. I'm not someone who can go home and meditate alone in silence, letting the thoughts go in and out. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in my sermon. And so today I want to offer you one of my spiritual practices of finding a moment of peace and safety when the world feels too hard. This is a way I access quiet and peace. And I think I learned this meditation in a Unitarian Universalist youth community. And so I'd like you to try it with me. Take a moment to feel your body in your pew if that's comfortable for you. And if not, just get in touch with your surroundings, look around, feel grounded. And then let your mind wander to a place in nature that is your favorite. What is that place that if you could go there and sit or stand or walk or roll through it, you would feel safe and calm and at peace? Let the sounds of that place come into your mind. Is there wind? What does the wind smell like? Are there birds? Insects? Is there sand underneath your feet? A trail? Rocks? A tree stump? Whatever it is, let your body sink into it and relax into that space. And just be there. Listen to the sounds of nature around you. Remember the feeling of being there in that place, the good memories you've had there. Breathe in and out. Smell the smells of nature. Feel the sun on your shoulders or the rain. And in a moment when you're ready, come back to this space together and we'll continue on with our worship service. As you say goodbye to that place in nature, it will be there for you whenever you need a place to be, away from the one you're in right now. Open your eyes, wiggle around a little, and let's stay seated while we sing our next hymn, number 352, Find a Stillness.
Each Sunday, we collect an offering to support the ministries of the church and the mission of a community organization that shares our faith values. This month, we are sharing the collection plate with, I have to get my note. The Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness. The MSNAA supports Native elders, children, and low-income families. If you'd like to make a contribution to them, please do so in the offering plate, or you can write out a check to MSNAA with a note on the memo line of the check that it's going to that charity. You may also donate online through the First Parish website, and we will have a special musical interlude while we collect the offering, and the offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Thank you to the tone chimes. Beautiful. You might notice I'm picking a lot of readings this fall from this new publication by Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto. It's called Spilling the Light. It just came out from Skinner House Press, which is the Unitarian Universalist Association's publishing house that publishes these beautiful, beautiful poetry books. And Reverend Soto is a UU minister and poet whose poetry I just adore. And so this is called Broken Shell Song. When I was a child, someone told me that if you hold a seashell to your ear, you can hear the ocean. When I was in middle school, I learned that what you hear is not the ocean. It's just the blood rushing through your ears. And that's fine. But I still wonder if a broken seashell has any good kind of song. The song of half a wave might be a measure of grief. The Bay of Fundy when it is empty, the bacteria flats in Yellowstone, steaming of copper and blue, smelling of sulfur, and somehow a cradle for life. Anklets of kelp forest. Even mostly empty, the ocean cannot help but brim with tokens of aliveness, reminders of beauty, and the plain, unabashed assurance that broken things, seashells, people, and times of love have beauty all of their own if we dance in the offbeat, if we can stand a little grit with the gorgeous gifts of this wide world. I do not do well in the quiet. I feel like I really should as a pastor, but I crave background noise. At night, I sleep with a white noise machine, which whirs in the background. It quietly hums to me as I drift off to sleep. As I go about my day, I'm usually listening to music or a podcast, and I default to calling a friend or family member to chat while I do chores around the house, or I take a walk with my dog. As I wrote this sermon, my dog snored next to me on the couch. The dishwasher ran in the next room, and I still had to resist the urge to put on music. While I drive to Bridgewater on my commute, I always have the radio on. It's NPR, obviously. One day, while I was listening to the radio like I usually do, a story came on WBUR about quiet. Ugh, I said to myself. I don't like the quiet. I almost turned the radio off. But then this beautiful cacophony of bird and insect noises came through the airwaves. This, the radio host said, is the quiet we are talking about. And so I listened. Matt Nicholson is a field recordist and audio engineer with Quiet Parks International, and he's the executive director of a nonprofit called Wilderness Quiet Parks. It's an organization that's trying to preserve and call attention to the world's quietest places. Matt makes these incredible recordings of places in nature which have no human-made noise for at least 15 minutes at a time. This means no cars, no distant airplanes, no boats passing by, no trains in the distance, no factories, no leaf blowers. These places are actually very, very rare, even in remote places, mostly because of airplanes. They fly over almost everywhere. Matt says that the number of places, wild places that we have left in the world that are mostly free from noise pollution are dwindling at a rapid rate. He says a lot of my work has to do with trying to find these places, take data on them, and then work to protect them. So when he says quiet, he is not talking about a lack of sound. Oh, I was so relieved. He's talking about this lack of noise pollution, human-made noise. So places like the Amazon jungle are really quiet when it comes to noise pollution, but they're loud and cacophonous when it comes to the more than human world. There's bird song, there's insects, they layer and layer and layer, and it is a beautiful symphony of sound. Wilderness Quiet Parks advocates for preservation of these spaces, which are free from noise pollution. But correlated with noise pollution are other types of pollution. These places also tend to have less air pollution, the airplanes, water pollution, and other types of environmental impacts. An ecosystem that is quiet is a healthier one. The animals can literally hear one another and communicate better. Matt, this audio engineer, he also believes that his work on quiet parks is important for people. After all, I tend to forget this, people are a part of ecosystems. Matt says that for humans to be able to truly enjoy and be present with nature and enjoy being present with nature, quiet is an important aspect of that. His organization believes that when people experience quiet spaces, we can feel that quiet on the inside, and it helps us to be happier and healthier people. I don't know about you, but I am a person who goes on some nature walks, and sometimes when I hear a train or a leaf blower in the distance, the experience, I won't say it's ruined, but it's different. It's really different. I don't feel that quiet on the inside all too often. And so I love his perspective on this, that nature benefits from quiet, and quiet benefits humans. And it turns out that noise pollution and access to quiet is something that overlaps with our current systems of inequality in our world. The NPR radio host who was interviewing Matt did some research, and she noticed that if you look at a noise map of a city, cities make these noise maps, and you overlay it with a neighborhood overview, you can see that the noisier neighborhoods are underserved neighborhoods. And when cities are doing planning work and noise mitigation work, these underserved communities are at the end of the chain of folks who get that noise mitigation. So noise is another type of system that's been set up that oppresses more oppressed people first. In my life, I've been privileged to have access to nature right in my backyard often. I've been privileged to live in quiet neighborhoods away from industry and industrial pollution and noise pollution, which are full instead of the noise of community. Yet when I am worried or overstimulated or have busy brain, as my family calls it, head full of thoughts, I crave the kind of peace that I have long associated with silence, not quiet. Often, as an introvert, I choose to disappear into a book or TV show instead of sitting with those busy thoughts. And even though I've tried to avoid them, those thoughts follow me around anyway. Lately, my mind has been running with the big what ifs, not necessarily only about my own life, but about our world. It's election season, as the radio and people in my daily life remind me. This is not without stress, I don't think, for any of us. I can feel the tension about that with most people I speak with. And it's a real tension, a tension with stakes. The what ifs are real. Yet I don't want to be someone who pushes aside those thoughts and doesn't allow myself to sit with them and reckon with them and recognize the impact. It feels like being in those quiet spaces that are super tense with silence that nobody recognizes and feel terrible. Like the study room in a really quiet library where if somebody knocks over a water bottle, everyone jumps. I don't know if you've been there, but that's what graduate school was like. Ooh. Or a cab ride with no conversation where the driver doesn't turn the radio on. I think in avoiding these kinds of silence, I have lost my tolerance for comfortable quiet and some of my ability to coexist with the sounds of the natural and human world around me. I grab my phone, connect my headphones, tune into something else and disconnect. There are these totally quiet spaces in the world, totally unlike nature quiet parks. Quiet boxes that have been built that are totally soundproof. And when humans go in them, these lab boxes made for recording particular things and for science experiments, we do poorly. After just 10 minutes, we can hear the sound of our own heartbeat, the sound of blinking. And in quiet, in silence like that, we don't all do so well. We feel really disconnected. Connected with ourselves, some people experience good connection with themselves, but a lot of people experience a really fearful disconnection with the rest of the world in those boxes. That's not what I want out of a spiritual practice of quiet, is to put myself in a box away from the rest of the world, listening to the sound of my own heartbeat and the sound of my own blinking. Ugh. Earlier in today's service, I offered you a guided meditation that invited you to connect with a favorite place in nature. And so I'll tell you about mine. My favorite place is a redwood grove in the Mendocino woodlands in Northern California. It is definitely not silent, but it is quiet. The air smells green. It smells like moss and always bug spray, and a mosquito is always whirring. I'm sitting on the edge of a tree stump that is 12 feet across, and I'm looking up at a canopy of smaller, living trees. Beams of sunlight pool on the ground where there is a break in the treetops, and the morning fog is lifting slowly. This is my portal to quiet, to center, to the kind of quiet which I think they were talking about on that NPR radio show. This is a quietness which is a richness of communication, of connection and interdependence. It allows me to feel right-sized in the web of life, to remember that I am only one small human whose brain will never figure it all out. I could sit in the sunlight beam on that tree stump in the forest for hours. And so I know I want to invite more quiet into my life. This month's Soul Matters theme, which invited me into deep listening, has reminded me that I still have the capacity to take a moment, to slow down, to let my thoughts flow, one into the other. And things are okay. After all, this is what mindfulness practice is about. Noticing, acknowledging, and non-judgmentally accepting my thoughts, feelings, and body experiences. There is no perfect way to be mindful, only the one that works for you. I hope we can all find a way to be connected and present, to accept the imperfection of that connection and presence, to sit in a moment of quiet with our brains and the anxiety of this moment. Breathe in, breathe out. In the silence. Amen. Blessed be.
It's now time for our closing hymn. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in hymn number 108. The words will be on the screen.
All right. Listen. The Spirit is calling. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It doesn't matter what you call it, for it has no name and has many different names. The Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of compassion, the Spirit of hope, the Spirit of justice. Can you hear it? Listen. The Spirit is calling. It's calling to you and to me. It's calling us to greater wholeness, greater connection, greater service, greater love. It's calling us to heal the brokenness within ourselves, in others, and in the world. It's calling us to live more deeply. It's calling us to beauty. It's calling us to laugh and dance and sing. It's calling us to live through life's pain and sorrow. It's calling us to live courageously and kindly, to speak our truth in love, to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. It's calling us into community. It's calling us into the greater life of all. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. Blessed be.
We'll now extinguish our chalice. Please join me in the extinguishing words.
Extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
That was a spectacular ending to our time for worship. Thank you, Denise and Pat. Our time of fellowship now begins. If you would like to stay for coffee hour, please make your way to the upper parish hall to my left. Coffee hour today is being hosted by Claudette Baker and Heather Meddy. Please join us.
We got this